got my laces tied. My trusty podcast by my side. If you wanna talk fun, it's the place to be. Yeah, it's the drop, D-R-O-P.
All right, today on our podcast, the guest is Mario Fraioli, which is the right way to say it. I should have asked you that before.
I go with Mario, but I mean, I know you're in Baltimore, so I think if you're anywhere along that eastern seaboard, you can get away with saying Mario. That's what it is. Yeah.
Okay. See, I didn't know that. I actually didn't know that was the delineation because I have a friend in my neighborhood who goes by Mario, which I hadn't really heard. I mean, I don't know that many Marios, so yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Well, what's interesting is I grew up in Massachusetts. My dad's name is Mario. Anyone else that I know in Massachusetts goes by Mario, but all my New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, it's all Mario. I've got a teammate for the running club that I'm a part of out here. He's from that neck of the woods. He goes by Mario, so it makes it easy on our team because I'm Mario, he's Mario.
Okay.
Yeah. But I respond to both. It's all good.
They're all super in my book, so
appreciate
that's what matters. And so I'm trying to figure out what your title is because you're a man of many titles. You're a running coach, you're a podcaster, you're a Substacker. I feel you're a very good runner, so I don't even know if there's a bucket to put you in or just spread you out between multiple buckets.
Oh, I mean, I do a lot of different things. I will say I take issue with the term Substacker. I hate that. I hate when people call it a Substack or they call themselves a Substacker or did you read my Substack? Like that just drives me nuts. It's an email newsletter. It's a blog. It's writing on the internet. But I mean, they're branding themselves really well. I think they're gonna, for better or worse, become the Kleenex of email newsletters. But I do a lot of different things. I run, I coach, I write a newsletter. I'm a husband. I'm a dog dad. I run. I do a lot of different things. But what I'm doing and when I'm doing it just depends on the day.
And you're probably familiar with it, but like I'm sure we have a very similar taste in books and music and other things, as I've noticed from reading the Morning Shakeout, which is your newsletter, not Substack, and also the name of your podcast. But I feel like you're probably a fan of Range by David Epstein, and I feel like a lot that applies to you in many ways.
Yeah, I would say I am a generalist more than anything else. I know a little about a lot, I would say. There are a few things that I know a lot more about, but I generally know a little about a lot because I have a diverse range of interests, certainly, within writing, but running as well, music. I mean, I've always been a curious person, and if something strikes my curiosity, I'm going to go down that rabbit hole until I'm satisfied. And I've gone down a lot of rabbit holes in my life. And I do that weekly in my newsletter, the Morning Shakeout. I mean, it's essentially just like you can follow me down a bunch of different rabbit holes.
Yeah, that's what I really do love your newsletter for that because there's always some nuggets of just so like whatever you're interested in at the time. And it's usually, like I said, we probably have some shared interests. So it always there's always something in there that is interesting or strikes me, or maybe like discovering a new thing. It's always nice to discover something new. And I like that it's about running. It's kind of like the Coach Bennett thing where like it's about running, but it's not about running. That's basically your newsletter as well. I feel like your newsletter is about running, but there's so much of it that's more about life and music and art and books and everything else.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I mean, for me, running has influenced and informed a lot of who I am and how I move through the world. And I think that's reflected in the newsletter every week through the things that I share and I write about and I'm thinking about and all of that.
So going back a little bit, for those who don't know, you grew up a runner, and you said you're from Massachusetts, correct?
Yeah, I'm from central Massachusetts, city of Worcester.
So would you consider a lifelong runner?
No, I started when I was 16, and the only reason I started was to keep in shape for basketball because I had a basketball
Okay.
coach that I had met at a summer camp who told me to run cross country the fall before my junior year of high school
Okay.
because it would help my endurance for the winter basketball season. And I just did what he told me to do. And I mean, I haven't stopped since, but I would not call myself a lifelong runner. But at this point, I mean, I'm 43 years old. So I've been running more of my life than I haven't. And as
Yeah.
I just said a minute ago, it's informed and influenced a lot of who I am and what I do and how I move through the world and how I think about things. So, I mean, it's a huge part of my identity for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and if you go back, it's funny because going back, I was actually, before I got on this podcast, I was writing a review for the Mizuno Wave Rider 29.
Mm-hmm.
And that shoe actually came out in 1998, which now that you mention is basically when you started running.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it, and I'm like, that's such a long time ago. Like, that's before, obviously before Strava, GPS watches, all these other things. And so, I mean, I'd imagine at the time you kept a handwritten journal or training log, which you probably still do. And
Oh, yeah. I mean, I
things
have
are
it. Hold on. I'm
so
going to
much
grab
different.
it real quick.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Now you got me excited because I know this is on YouTube, but that's my handwritten
I
journal.
love that.
Just a field
Oh.
notes notebook. I've crossed out the field. I put running notes, but I still keep a handwritten log. But yeah, that's how I started back in 1998, and I still have all those logs too.
Do you ever go back and read any of them?
Yeah, I do. Not on any kind of like regular cadence, but usually I'll be, I'll be thinking of something, just reminiscing or whatever, and I'll remember a race and I'll go back and just check my notes on it, or I'll think about workouts that I've done over the years, and I'll be like, I think I did that like the fall going into my junior year of cross country or something, right? So
Oh, wow.
I'll go look up that log. I'll go find that log and like try to find the workout that I'm looking for. And
Yeah.
I've kept, outside of just my running logs, I mean, I've kept journals for as long as I can remember. And it's the
Yeah.
same sort of thing with journals. From time to time, I'll go back and just look at a particular date. Like, the day that my mom died, I wrote in my journal that day. And sometimes I'll go back and I'll just reflect on that. Or again, like a
Wow.
big race or some other monumental moment that comes up. And it's like usually like an anniversary or there's something that triggers it. But I definitely
Yeah.
do that with my running log and my journal in general, because I think it's good to remind yourself of where you were at a given time, especially if you are trying to see some signs of progress. And for me, that comes in many different forms. It might be how I've improved as a runner. I often look at the quality of my writing, and I'll do this with my newsletter as well, and see how that's kind of evolved over a period of time. Even my handwriting in my journals. I mean, I'll look back at some of my stuff from college and I'm like, Jesus Christ, like you just were just sloppy. And I can tell, like, it's interesting to go back and look at a lot of those things, because sometimes even with like the handwriting, I can see when something was rushed, right? And it'll take me back to that time and I'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that I felt rushed when I was writing this, or I was anxious about something. And
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, it's kind of wild how that happens. But I think it's, I think it's instructive to look back on that from time to time and just,
Yeah.
sort of see where you were and how that's evolved over a period.
Are you a cursive or regular writing kind of guy?
Yeah, just regular writing kind of guy. I don't even
Okay.
know if I remember how to write in cursive anymore.
So,
Aside from
I'm
my signature,
actually-
that's about it. Just my signature. Otherwise, it's
Yeah,
just
I think mine's
regular,
just a line.
regular letters.
I'm notoriously bad at. I'm just bad at journaling in general. I'll have spurts and stuff, but I did actually. I dedicated myself to doing it for a year in 2023, and I had the Tracksmith journal.
Yeah, yeah.
And I did it pretty much every day for the whole year, and then kind of continued in 2024, and it kind of fell off. So I'm trying to get back at it, but I tried to make it a practice of like, because I knew cursive from elementary school or high school, and I tried to I was like, this is going to be a lost art at some point. Like, nobody's going to remember how to do this.
Yeah.
I might be one of the last people, like,
You might
generationally.
be. Who knows?
And I was like, I'm just going to do it, even though it's kind of a pain in the ass. And so, yeah, I've kind of practiced it and got better, and now it's kind of my go-to for handwriting. And it's, I don't know, it's kind of nice in a grandpa kind of way.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said just for keeping analog things in our life, writing in a journal, reading physical books, just disconnecting from the internet, as great of an invention as the internet is, and it's
Yeah.
enriched our lives in many ways, allowing us to have this conversation right now. But I think it can be easy to become consumed by that and those things. And for me, you and I are of a similar age. Like, I didn't grow up with all of this stuff, right? And so,
Right.
I have very fond
We're the
memories of
same age, by the way.
yeah, I have very fond memories of like journaling and reading the newspaper and just listening to music in my kitchen. And I try not to lose that, because a lot of those memories are good memories, but I also think they help to shape my perspective in many ways. And it's there's definitely friction involved in, like, again, writing in a journal and like reading physical books and like doing all this stuff. But I think it's important to have some of that in your life.
I totally agree, by the way. Can I, you don't have to answer this because it's a controversial topic, but are audiobooks and regular books the same?
I've never listened to an audiobook in my life. As much as I love podcasts and
Yeah,
music and listening to things in general, I've
Yeah.
never listened to an audiobook in my life. But I know a lot of people who do, and for them, it's just their preferred method of taking in that content or listening to a story, whatever it is. And I think, the main thing isn't whether you're looking at the page or listening to it in your ears. Are you taking something away from it? And are you entertained if it's a fictional novel or something? And I think as long as it's achieving that end, the
Yeah.
method of which you do it, to me, it doesn't really matter. But
See, I feel like for me, it is I would say personally for me, it doesn't count because for audio, because I get so distracted or will
yeah, same.
spin off into like, I'll hear something in the story and then start thinking about something else. And by the time I come back to it, I've missed, a whole page or something. It's kind
Yeah.
of the same with podcasts, which is why I don't run listening to anything, because it's pointless.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't
get
listen to anything when I run either.
Yeah. And I think there's something about like a written word where it's contemplative and you have to pay attention or else you're not going to know what's going on.
Yeah, I'm that way too, and I couldn't explain to you why, but when I am immersed in a book, I'm focused. I'm reading the book, and it's tough to distract me and pull me away from the page. But if I'm listening to something, whether it's music, a podcast, which I like to do both of those things, it's
Yeah.
usually while I'm doing something else. I'm cleaning the house. I'm driving the car. I'm
Yeah.
out for a walk or whatever it happens to be, and I'm taking a lot of that in, but not with the same depth as when I'm actually reading a book and focused on it.
Totally.
I think that's why I prefer reading physical books.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, so you're talking about writing a little bit, and that's one of your kind of go-to practices, which you do every week. Your newsletter comes out every Monday, and you're
Every Tuesday. I write it on Mondays,
sorry.
but it lands on Tuesday.
Every Tuesday, and you're 500. Are you 500 in? Is that correct?
508 issues as of this week.
Okay. Yeah, that's. And have you missed any Tuesdays, or has it? That's insane. Like
I have not missed a week in nearly 10 years.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I'm poor. I wouldn't say I'm poor, but I have, like, I can be consistent and then I'll miss some and then I'll come back and then I'm a little patchy. But I try to tell people, especially like a lot of people want to be shoe reviewers or YouTubers or things like that. And I'm like, the key to really success in any of those is just showing up and being consistent, whatever your schedule is, if it's every day, every week, and then you'll find your audience, you'll find your groove, you'll get your voice, and but you have to do it when you don't want to. And and I feel like you do that. So can you talk about kind of how you've done that for every week, or how you push through when you don't want to do it?
Yeah, I mean, it's as easy and as hard as that. You just got to keep showing up. I mean, I've had plenty of weeks, more than I can count, in the last 508 when the last thing I've wanted to do is sit down and write the newsletter because I'm tired, I'm not feeling well, my wife's doing something fun and I got to put this newsletter out. But for me, when I make a commitment to something, I'm fully committed to it and I'm all in. And I committed to this a long time ago. Not with the idea that I would write this for 500 plus weeks in a row. I had no idea, but I was just committing to this practice. And it really has become a practice for me because it's my weekly exercise in sitting down and looking back at usually just the past week, sometimes a little more beyond that, but all of these things that I've been thinking about, that I've been reading, that I've been watching, that I've been listening to, and what I've taken away from that. And throughout the week, I'm scribbling those notes, usually in an Apple Notes file, because a lot of the stuff that I share, I want to be able to link to so other people can check it out. And, you know, it's an article on the internet, it's a video on YouTube, it's music, something like that. But you know, I'll listen to something and I'll scribble some quick notes in an Apple Notes file, but nothing that anyone else would understand. It's like my digital chicken scratch. And then I sit down every Monday and I go through all of that and I write out the newsletter and I put it together for myself as much as the people who are reading it. So at this point, like it's just a foundational weekly practice for me. It's kind of journaling in real time in a lot of ways. And I'm fortunate that it's reached a wide audience of people who are at least somewhat interested in some of the same things that I am. And that's really just been, you know, a steady drip over the past 10 years or so.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I know you're sponsored by New Balance. So I threw up the New Balance Rebel, Fuel Cell Rebel for you.
I appreciate that. I just got my second pair of them yesterday. They sent me an early pair some number of months ago, but I got that colorway yesterday. They're pretty sweet.
Yeah. It's a pretty sweet looking shoe, I gotta say. Like, it looks great.
It is. It looks
and
great.
It runs
and
great.
This should be mentioned, and my contact at New Balance let me know this was the case, but they have another colorway of that shoe that's more black, and it's to pay homage to Khalid Kanuchi when he broke the world record in the marathon at Chicago I'm going to get this wrong. I think it was 20 years ago. I think it was 2005, if I'm not mistaken. You're in 205.38, which is still the American record. And it's not, obviously, it's not the same shoe. We're in a completely different era, but that colorway was just kind of a bit of a throwback to recognize him, which is
cool. Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, great looking shoe, great running shoe too. Okay, so yeah, so we got and so you also have your podcast, which how long has the podcast and the newsletter been going on for the same amount of time?
No, I started the newsletter in late 2015. The podcast came out in 2017, I believe it was. It was a little while later. And I was doing that weekly for a while, and it just became too much with everything else that I've got going on. So I spend most of my working time coaching. I mean, that's how I spend probably, I'd say 75-80% of my working time is coaching. And I was trying to do that and put out the newsletter every week and do the podcast. And you know, podcasting, if you're doing it right, it takes a lot of time, you know, to prep yourself for conversation, to get the setup right, you know, to go through the post-production, do all the intro, like all of that stuff. And I kind of burned myself out on it, to be completely honest. And I got through, I think it was the end of 22 on a weekly cadence, and then starting in 23 I was like, I can't do this every week. So I'm at a monthly cadence right now, and that feels right for me. Feels like, you know, feels very doable to have that kind of space, and I can usually just get a little bit ahead, and then I have one less thing to worry about for a few months at a time. But it hasn't been going quite as long as the newsletter, but hopefully it serves as a nice complement to it.
Was that was doing that, scaling it back, did you feel weird about that? Because
no, I felt relieved, man. It was a huge relief to scale it back. Yeah.
But at first, did you think it was in any way not a failure, but you know how you're talking about, just show up and do it like every week, do it, make sure it shows up and you do it. Did you feel like that at all with the podcast, saying, okay, I gotta dial this back?
No, because it just wasn't. It was doing more harm than good at that point. I could tell it was a stressor, and an unhealthy stressor. I think there are healthy stressors and unhealthy stressors, but it was an unhealthy stressor at the time, and I knew something had to give. And the decision that I came to, I was like, all right, I'm either going to go double down on this podcast and coach less people, or I'm going to go the other way and focus on my coaching and scale back the podcast. I had to do one of those two things, and I chose to double down on coaching and scale back the podcast. And so I
Gotcha.
didn't feel bad about doing that. I mean, the truth is, from a financial standpoint, because I rely on sponsorship, I took a hit by not doing it every week.
Right.
But that was fine. That was totally a worthwhile trade-off for my own sanity and mental health.
Yeah. So with coaching, how many clients do you have right now?
Right now, I'm coaching 32 people, which is a little
wow.
higher than I would like to be. My set limit is 25, but I have a personal policy that if I've coached someone in the past and they've taken a period of time off due to pregnancy, they just needed a break and didn't want to focus on training for something for a while, if they did want to train for something again, I would work with them, no questions asked. And so I'm in that kind of situation right now because we're ramping up for fall marathon season. So I heard from a few people recently who are like, hey, I'm running New York, I'm running CIM. I'd love to work with you for the next 16 weeks, which I don't really do now with new clients. We have a longer commitment, but I mean, I have people that I've coached, I would say, on and off to some degree for 10 or more years at this point, and I feel very connected and loyal to those people, and I want to help them out. So we're a little high right now, but 32 is where I'm at.
That's pretty awesome. So this fall marathon season's coming up real fast. So
it's here, man. It's essentially here. I mean, the races themselves are a few weeks away, but I mean, from a coaching standpoint, we're in it at this stage.
Oh yeah, for sure. What's your favorite part about coaching?
Just the relationships that I've been able to build over time and to be a part of someone's journey with them, because people who come to me for coaching, they're driven people. They have a goal. They're training to PR in the marathon or qualify for Boston or the Olympic trials or win their age group at some race. Like they want to do something. They're pretty driven, and this is important to them. And I coach a couple of professional athletes, but most of the people that I coach are just everyday people with families and jobs and a lot of other things going on in their life. But this pursuit of competitive running is really important to them, and they take it seriously, and they are literally investing in it by hiring me as their coach. So I take that role very seriously, and it's an honor and a privilege to be alongside someone on that journey to whatever it is. And sometimes those journeys are pretty clearly defined. I want to qualify for the Boston Marathon at this race. But oftentimes what happens, and this is how I found myself in sort of the predicament that I'm in now, something else clicks in the person and they do the thing that they wanted to do. And then they're curious about, well, if I did that thing, like what else is possible? And it's just, I mean, again, an honor and a privilege to be in that role and alongside someone when we're exploring possibility. And that's really what drives me, is just that exploration of what is possible for someone.
Yeah. Who are the coaches that you looked up to, like that you look up to the most, either in the past or even now?
Number one is Karen Bowen. She was my college coach for cross country and track, and a very important person in my life. She showed me what good coaching is and what influence it can have on someone, because she helped me to get faster than I ever thought I could, but she taught me so much more than just the X's and O's of training for a race. So she's number one. She's someone I'm still close to this day, and has really influenced a lot of how I do my own job as a coach. And then others are folks that I've been fortunate to either follow their career and or meet them for a long time. I just wrote about Joe Vigil in my newsletter. He passed away recently at the age of 95. And if you've been in this game long enough, you probably know of Joe Vigil. He's one of the greatest distance running coaches of all time. Coached Dina Castor to an Olympic medal, had a hand in Meb's Olympic medal, coached Pat Porter, Adam State, which was a dominant collegiate program, started the USATF coaching education program. And so I knew of him. I'd read a lot of his stuff. I'd read interviews with him. I saw him at a Starbucks at the Olympic trials in 2012, and I just went up and introduced myself to him. And he sat down with me for 45 minutes, and we talked coaching, and I was coaching someone for the Olympics that year. And we went through his schedule, and he was just like kind of giving me some advice on things that he might tweak or that he would focus on over the next 2 months, gave me his email address. He and I stayed in touch. And I mean,
Wow.
just talking about that now, it's kind of like making my head spin that I had this direct line to one of the best coaches in the world, all because I went up and introduced myself to him at a Starbucks. And the biggest thing that he taught me had nothing to do with the X's and O's of writing a marathon program. It was to pay it forward. And that's really what he tried to do throughout his career, and something that I take very seriously for myself. I mentor a number of young coaches as well, just on the side. And that is just something like, I don't charge for that. I just do it because others did that for me. And that's my way of being able to pay it forward. So he's a huge one. A guy named Frank Gagliano, who is probably one of the greatest middle distance track coaches of all time. He's closing in on 90 years old now. He's not coaching anymore, but he had a number of roles with the Nike Farm Team and Reebok Enclave, and started the New York, New Jersey Track Club. I think he's had 15 Olympians. He's known as GAGs. And I knew a lot of people who were coached by him and knew him, and I'd always admired him from afar. And I reached out to a friend of mine, Liam Boylan-Pett, who was coached by GAGs at the New York, New Jersey Track Club. And I was like, hey, do you think GAGs would ever want to sit down for a podcast? And he's like, I'll put you in touch with him and you can ask. And he did that. And we were in touch via email. I was like, hey, I'm going to be in New York, because that's where he was living at the time. I'd love to come to your house and sit down with you for an hour or so and just talk about coaching and your career. And I had to explain to him what a podcast was. He wasn't entirely sure. I think he was 82 when I interviewed him in 2018. And we did exactly that. I went to New York. I took the train up to his house. We sat down, had this incredible podcast, which you can listen to. I don't remember what number it is off the top of my head, but if you search Frank Gagliano, The Morning Shakeout, you'll find it. And really just connected with him. We went out to lunch afterward. I had his phone number, and we've stayed in touch ever since then. And
That's amazing.
I look up to those types of coaches who've had long careers and have had an impact on their athletes' lives beyond just what they did on the track, on the roads, or on the trails, because that's really what it's about. And that's what it was for me with Karen Bowen. And that's the effect that I want to have on other people. So I've always sought out, coaches who knew what they were talking about from a training standpoint. But if you talk to any of their athletes, I mean, they might talk a little bit about, oh, here's how we changed my training and I became a better marathoner. More often than not, the athlete is talking about, how the coach gave them confidence, which spilled over into other areas of their life and helped them better understand how this piece of running fit into everything else that they were doing. And it wasn't, their entire identity. And, those are the coaches that I look up to, and those are the reasons that I look up to those coaches. And that's the coach that I try to be.
Yeah. I mean, and that brings us, to a topic that everybody's talking about now, which is everyone thinks that obviously AI is the future of everything, from work, from coding to warehouse management to whatever, to obviously coaching is in the forefront of Strava's pitch with Rana and all these other things. So what is your view of AI, and how will that totally disrupt the space, or will it be used as a tool, or is it just all smoke and mirrors?
Yeah. Well, AI is here. It's not going away. And I think people need to accept that fact, for better or worse. There's just too much investment going on in it, and it's too much of a focus for a lot of businesses. I think it's just going to fall by the wayside. And I do think it is going to disrupt and transform some industries, but it will never replace human connection, at least like real deep human connection. I mean, I've read these, crazy stories about people developing relationships with their AI chatbot and all that stuff. And whatever, that's a whole nother thing. But thinking about it from a coaching standpoint, I mean, I am sure that AI can write you a great training program. And if that's all that you're looking for, you can probably do that for free on ChatGPT, or you could pay a couple of bucks and get a great program. But it will never replace that human to human connection. It can make a great training program, but making a great training program is not what coaching is, right? And so, I mean, even before the advent of AI, I mean, I realized like coaching is a human-centered profession. right? And if you think of it that way and you really prioritize that and you do your job really well, I don't think you're going to have anything to worry about. But I do
Yeah.
think, at least in coaching, because coaching's become kind of a popular thing to do over the last like 5 to 10 years. It's easier than ever to
Right.
hang up your shingle and say that I'm a coach. And I mean, you see it all over Instagram and
Yeah.
all of that. I mean, most of those coaches suck. I mean, they just be flat out like honest about it. They suck. They don't know what coaching is.
Right.
They have developed this cult of personality and people who follow them for one reason or another, and they sell them a training plan, and that's not going to last. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
for me personally, the thing I'm most proud of as a coach are the relationships that I built and the length of those relationships. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think AI is going to have that kind of lasting impact from a coaching standpoint. But it is a tool, and I do think it is a tool that, I mean, is going to be industry dependent on how disruptive it may be. But for coaching, I mean, I think it can be a great tool for analyzing big data sets, looking for, trends over time, taking out a lot of that like
Yeah. Right.
tedious menial work of like going through pages and pages of Excel spreadsheets, right? And like trying to find the pattern. Like I suck at that stuff. I'm not a data analyst, but that data and the analysis of it can be important. If it does a better job than I can, that's great, because then I can take that into the relationship with the
Right.
athlete and give them the insights and make applications that are going to help them move the ball forward. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that fully answers your question, but that's kind of
No,
my quick take on it.
that's what I suspect. I mean, that's what I think too, is that, like you said, there is, you can't convince me that no matter how far AI is taken, and we've heard everything from it'll end the world to save the world and anything in between. It's still, I still believe that there is something irreplaceable about authenticity and human relationship that you just cannot replicate in something that's, and I mean, you see it even in the AI with and even in the videos with humans that look real, you could still see it in the eyes.
Yeah.
Like there's just something there. And I feel it's the same way just with interpersonal connection or advice or anything. There's something about that. And I think, and this is a big issue in writing too, because even with Substack, I read somewhere someone wrote it the other day, I think 50 or 70% of all writers on there use AI, which is
interesting.
And I don't know
Substack?
on Substack.
Okay.
I don't know if that means, if that also counts something like Grammarly or helping spell check or edit. But it's a pretty alarming rate. I personally don't use it for my writing, whether it's on Believe and Run or my personal writing. I've never used it except for, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like at the top of Google search, like if I search something real quick, like, oh, what was the date? When did this happen? Like, yeah, I'll use the AI summary, but I've never used it to clean up my writing or arrange it or give me ideas. I've never done that.
Yeah.
Because I think, like I said, authenticity, I feel like, is the currency of the future, because as things get more and more fabricated and you can tell when something's written by AI or produced by AI. There's a certain cadence and hyphens and whatever, and I feel like authenticity is what people are going to be looking for. So that's like real world experiences, real world advice from coaches, where, oh, you ran this workout, you ran a Michigan workout before, you know how that feels, things like that.
Yeah, I think that's right. And a couple different thoughts on that. I mean, just from the running standpoint, I mean, a lot of the athletes that I work with, we do so virtually. I have a group in San Francisco that I've been coaching every week for the last 10 years. I mean, what I'm thinking about in the years ahead, because I see it in my Wednesday night group, which is I coach the running workout for a bigger club, right? So these aren't my one-on-one athletes. Like these are members of the Golden Gate Triathlon Club, and as part of their membership, they get this weekly coach track workout by me. And so
Okay.
I only see them on Wednesday nights, but our numbers have skyrocketed over the last 10 years. And I think that reflects
Sure.
just the trend of, the increased interest in running in general over that period of time. But I think a lot of that is driven by this desire for human connection. So as I think about like the trajectory of my career, and I'm not someone who makes long-term plans, but the one thing that I am thinking about for the next couple of years is how do I do more of the in-person stuff? Because I think that is
Yeah.
what most people are going to be looking for, but I also think that's what's going to be the most valuable as well. And again,
Totally.
because of technology, like I'm able to coach a number of athletes from around the world, which is amazing, right? And I have awesome tools that allow us to like stay connected. I can analyze their data. We're, in conversation, like all of these different things, and I can help them out in a meaningful way. But it'll never be the same as the person that I see, 1, 2, 3 times a week, at the workout, and I can see how they move, and I can look at the expression on their face, and I can make adjustments, kind of in real time. I can have a heart-to-heart talk with them, after a tough workout or a tough race. I mean, that's been going on forever, and I think it's important that, at least in running, that we don't lose that. But I mean, for me, like that's something I'm personally planning on doubling down on over the next several years,
Yeah.
because, no AI bot's going to get in the middle of my track workout on Wednesday.
Yeah.
But the second thing is just like AI in general right now, right? I mean, it's like the hot thing. Every company is trying to do something with AI, and a lot of times it's something they've already been doing for years. Now they're just calling it AI, right? It's like, so, you got
True.
Strava, AI, athlete intelligence. You got Apple intelligence, artificial intelligence, and people think of, Chat GPT and chat bots, and like that's a relatively, new thing. But I mean, technology has been, it's been evolving for a long time, and a lot of like, tools that we've had for a while, like just data analysis tool, like those things have been around forever. Now people are like, oh, this is artificial intelligence. Okay, so we're calling it that now. But it's
Right.
like, I think about that, and it's like, well, some of these tools we've been using for a while anyway, and now we're saying, yeah, I'm using AI to do my job. Well, it's like you've been using that tool for a long time. Now you're just calling it something different because it's the en vogue, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see kind of how it all evolves. But again, for me, and just going back to the whole analog thing, I mean, I think as technology continues to proliferate more areas of our life, like I'm looking for those opportunities to do more real things in the real world in an analog way, because I do think they last a bit longer. Their impact certainly lasts a bit longer, and it just connects us a lot more deeply than a lot of this digital stuff. And again, like I'm not anti-digital anything or technology or advancing, but I think you just have to be really careful about how you use these tools so they don't end up using you.
So I have this friend, and she's a writer, and she does it for a job, and a lot of like press release type stuff or smaller publication type things. But she's basically started using AI like all the time. In fact, to me, it's I don't know if it's disingenuous. I don't know. It just feels weird to me because it's like she'll input the ideas and the quotes and stuff, and it'll be, or they upload the interview transcript, and it'll be like pull quotes and then basically write a story around this. Yeah. And she kept making this case like you got to use AI. You're gonna be left behind, and I'm like, maybe that's true, and I get it in some ways as a tool, but I'm also like, as a defense, I'm like, I spent so many years building this muscle of whether it's writing or coaching or whatever else, and I'm not gonna, I can go to the gym and use this new set of weights that they brought in that helps you get stronger or helps you get to your next goal. But if I just go to the gym and have a machine do it all for me, then that's a totally different thing. And I'm not willing to let myself atrophy that much for some short-term success.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think what's one of the main promises of AI? It's to eliminate friction, right? And
Yeah. Right.
friction's important. It's an important part of the equation. I mean, if you're working toward anything, whether it's running, writing, your career, relationships, like there's going to be friction. There's going to be low moments. There's going to be, opportunities to grow and to learn and grow. And that's an important part of the process. And I wouldn't want to outsource any of that. I mean, I've had a lot of pain in my life, and I'm grateful for it. I've learned to be grateful for that because it's helped to shape who I am now and where I am. And without it, I wouldn't I wouldn't be here. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a more existential type of thing. But I think AI is trying to make that promise of, hey, we're going to remove the friction. Everything's going to be seamless. It's going to be easy. And you can do so much more of it. And that's the other thing for me. Like, it's a big part of the reason why I work for myself and I didn't make the Morning Shakeout into a bigger thing. I'm not looking to scale and grow to crazy numbers. I'm trying to do
Right.
things. And this is a big
Right.
part of how I put the newsletter out every week. Like, that cadence works for me. Like, I'm trying to do things at a cadence and a speed that works for me. And I've had people tell me with the Morning Shakeout, they're like, hey, if you spent X amount of money on Facebook ads and this, that, and the other, you get 10,000
Right.
subscribers more in a
Right.
week. And I'm like, okay. I mean, that looks good when maybe I approach a sponsor or something, but those 10,000 people, they just clicked an ad on Facebook. They don't know who I am. They haven't been following my stuff. They
Right.
haven't been like, let me check this out like once or twice. Okay, now maybe I want to sign up. Those are the people that I want to sign up because they've kind of tested things out and they're like, you know what? I'm going to give this a shot. I think this is for me, rather than like, mindlessly just pressing the button. Then they don't open the email every week. And, for what? It's like, I can say that I have like a lot more numbers type of thing. I mean, that's one of the
Yeah.
biggest things I'm proud about with the newsletter is I have an extremely high open rate and I've never spent a dime on marketing. The way that
That's
people find
amazing.
out about it and the way that, like, even in my coaching, the way that people find out about my coaching is all by word of mouth. It's people who've read the newsletter, they enjoy it, and they're like, hey, Robbie, I think you might enjoy this. Check it out.
Yeah.
There's other ways to discover it, but that's the main mechanism. Same thing with a lot of the people that I coach. It's like, hey, I worked with Mario. I had a great experience. I think you should reach out to him and see if he can help you. I mean, that's how I've done my thing and it works for me.
Yeah.
But I think there's always that temptation now. It's like, use AI or some other tool and you can scale to some crazy number. And I've never wanted to do that myself. But I think a lot of people, they are tempted by that and they give into that temptation. And that's a vicious cycle to find yourself in.
Yeah. I think it's no, exactly what you're talking about. That friction, anyone who has run knows this, is that you need to feel that pain or that friction, that wall, and push through it to get to the next level. And that's the most rewarding part of running, and it's necessary for improvement in all aspects of life. There has to be that push and the pull, that tension that creates growth.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, as I was saying earlier, running has really informed my perspective on other areas of life. And that's a good example of how it's done that, because I've seen the same sort of pattern play out in my relationships, in my professional career, what have you. It's all the same as the process of, what this running journey has been for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see for sure. I mean, obviously things change. I mean, going back to the printing press, things it's been the end of the world for all kinds of technologies.
Yep.
And I think eventually, we adapt and move forward. I think a lot of the promises, especially in the technological revolution of the aughts and the early 2010s, there were so many promises made that really have not happened or came to pass. I think this, it seems to be, it all is these grand promises and things that are going to happen, and then it comes back down to earth, and we move on.
Well, and I think now, just the age that we live in with social media and the ease of access to information, I mean, whatever it is, just gets, completely blown up to whatever degree, and it's made to be the biggest thing in the world at the moment, and people want to act on it because they feel like they need to. And I mean, the truth is it will eventually, just sort of settle down. And that's why there was a period of time where, like, I'm a little bit of a closet tech nerd, where things would come out and I would jump on. I want to be the early adopter on things. And I stopped doing that like several years ago, and I've just become the person who's like, let me just kind of like wait and see if this thing has any like utility, if it has staying power. And that's a much more sane way to do things. I think if you're always jumping on the next hot trend, I mean, I see this in coaching with training, it still happens in tech. Like, I mean, that'll wear you down, man. I mean, it's brutal, type of thing. And it's just like we live in a world of just like hype. And I think it's just a good skill to develop, is learning how to tune out that noise and wait for the signal to emerge.
It's always funny because I always think about companies that IPO and their stock always shoots up for the first month or two, and then it comes crashing down, and then it takes they're either done for, or then it takes like 2 more years. I feel like On is a perfect example of this. Actually, that's a pretty good example in general of something that's hyped and may work out or won't. I don't know. I guess we'll see. But I feel like I totally know exactly what you mean. You see it all the time there was the search engine craze, and then everyone crashed, and you've had Google and no more Alta Vista and all these other ones. Netscape gone. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. So okay, let's get back to running a little bit. For you right now? What is the most exciting stuff? What's the most exciting things happening in running? Because I mean, like you said, you've been running for 27 years now, so. I feel like that's a good enough track record, no pun intended, to see some trends come and go. So what's exciting for you right now?
Just the increased interest in it. I mean, that's reflected in race numbers. I mean, it's harder and harder to get into almost any race these days because of the interest in running, marathons in particular, but trail races, even shorter events. And so that's undeniable. But again, I see it just, in my day-to-day, like out in the wild. Like I coach a local club here, and as over the last 10 years, like I've just seen the numbers go up. That has nothing to do with, with me or my coaching ability. That's people who are interested in running and want to be part of a community. And to me, that is really, really exciting right now. And I think long term, if those people stay in it, that's going to be a really healthy thing for the sport, which I can drill down and talk more specifically about the competitive side of it here in a bit. But the industry of running, all the various shoe companies, apparel companies, race companies, media companies that have kind of come about in the last like 5 to 10 years. And then just for the culture of it in general, like people who, running is a part of not just their life, but it becomes part of their lifestyle. Right. And that's to me, as someone who's been in this for nearly 3 decades now, like it's probably the most exciting time from that standpoint.
Yeah. I mean, that's everything you said, especially with the amount of brands and other things popping up every day is crazy to me. It is.
Oh yeah.
It's
nuts.
Like
I can't keep track of it anymore. I used to like probably 10, 15 years ago, I could tell you all the shoe brand, like at least here in the US, like I could tell you like all the shoe brands and all the apparel brands worth paying attention to. Now it's just like there's too many, and there's new ones coming out all the time, and some of them fall by the wayside and I don't even realize they've fallen by the wayside, and then a new one will pop up and everyone's talking about it, and I've just quit trying to pay attention to that stuff because it's happening at such breakneck speed. But I think that's a good thing. I mean, with that, running's different things to different people, right? I mean, I think Ben Rosario called it our third running boom right now, and I think that's correct.
We just recorded him on the podcast this morning, by the way.
Yeah, Ben's awesome. I've known Ben for a long time, and he's touched various parts of this industry as well, from elite athlete to elite athlete coach, and founding a team to putting on races, running store. Like very few people have his insight into this stuff, and he called it the third running boom. And I think that's spot on. And what's cool about it is no matter what running is for you, if it's a competitive pursuit, if it's a social pursuit, if it is just a healthy fitness pursuit for you, there's something in it for you, right? There's other people who are doing it for those same reasons. There's brands that are going to speak to you. There's media publications that are going to put out stuff for you to consume. There's going to be events, whether they're a competitive race or it's a completely social thing, for you to attend. And I mean, that's always been the case to some degree, but now like there's just more options for people. And I think that is just, again, like just kind of opening that door a bit wider, saying like, hey, if you run for whatever reason, like there's something in it here for you. Come on in. And that's great.
Yeah. I love the accessibility of it, how it's just become, like you said, it's just, there's something for everyone. And that's like every age, every demographic. It seems like there's a club or a race or an organization. And it's pretty incredible because it is one of those things that, obviously, if you get into the sport, it can become expensive if you really get into shoes and apparel and races and whatnot. But at its base level, it really is just a pair of shoes and shorts and just get out there.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. It's something that I remind people, especially my athletes, of all the time. Like, this is the simplest sport in the world. First to the finish
Yeah.
line wins, from a competitive standpoint. But it's also one of the easiest activities to go out and do, because all you really need is a pair of shoes. And in some instances, you might not even need a pair of shoes. But it
True.
doesn't, it can be expensive. And there are definitely aspects of running that are trending that way. But it doesn't change the purity and the simplicity of putting one foot in front of the other, sharing those miles with other people, exploring a new place, and trying to discover and push your limits. I mean, at its core, that's what it comes down to. And I hope that never changes. And that really shouldn't cost anyone much, if any, money at all.
Yeah. What do you see as maybe a negative or a pitfall of the running craze or the running boom, where maybe a lot of new runners are jumping into the sport for the first time? What do you see as kind of some caveats there?
I see two sides of it. One is just gatekeeping. People who've been in it for a long time for one reason or another, who don't like the change and don't like the shift and don't like more people coming into it and don't like people who do it for different reasons than they do. And I'm not going to call out anything specifically, but it's happening
Like
across the board. What's that?
Like letsrun.com.
I'm not going to name anything, but it's happening across the board. But on the other side of it, too, people who come in that are new and they do want to race and they want to see what's possible for themselves, not understanding, appreciating, or showing interest in the history of the sport as well. Because I think both of those things are important. You got to welcome new people in. I think that's key. But if you are a new person coming in, I think it behooves you to go and learn about who the great runners are, what training history looks. I mean, this is the thing that drives me crazy, and why I don't spend much time on Instagram or social media in general is the influencer coaches, right? Who come on. It's like, hey, this new crazy thing called threshold running. It's like, give me a fucking break, man. And it's just, I mean, that's the internet and that's like Instagram. But it's like, if you knew your history, I mean, you would know that this stuff has been studied for a long time. And I've quoted this many times before. The wheel keeps getting reinvented, but it's still a wheel. And that drives me nuts. So whether it's training history or just like understanding the history of the sport and how records have progressed and how events have grown and how certain cultural trends have come back around, I think it's important for newer runners to be exposed to that as much as it is to, watch out for the gatekeepers who are like, I don't want to welcome these people in. I don't like what they're running for. It's like, hey, just be open-minded about it, right? It's like we all run for different reasons and we should try to respect and appreciate one another for that.
Yeah. No, I'm totally with you. I feel like, there can be I like that part about having some respect for the sport and just kind of just learning more about it and the history of it, because I think it is important and it matters. When I first started running, I just went to the library and grabbed every book on running I think that there was.
Yeah, same.
Which, what I think about when I think about running was, of course, a great one. And then The Duel in the Sun. I think Frank Shorter's autobiography. And there's a lot of really good ones out there. I mean, there's so many more, of course, but I remember those ones really stood out to me when I was first start to run.
Yeah.
And just reading about the history of the sport. I mean, I'm still, because I started later in life, and there's so much I don't know that I wish I did know. There's this at my kid's school, one of my son's classmates, his grandpa. He was talking to me about running one day because I was wearing a shirt with some cross-country runners on the back, a Diodora shirt. And he was like, oh, yeah, I ran with the Irish Brigade down in Tennessee. I don't even know. It was like, was it at the University of Tennessee or something? Or I forget what it was, but it was like in the 70s. And it was when they brought over all these Irish runners who were like dominating the scene at the time. And I don't know any of this history. And he's like dropping all these names. And I'm like, dude, I'm sorry, I don't know. But I'm sure like in the 70s, it was amazing. And you would probably know some of them if I mentioned their names. And I just felt so bad because I was like, I wish I knew all this. But there's so much knowledge out there.
Yeah, well, you can never know all of it. I certainly don't know all of it, but I mean,
Yeah.
when I was in high school and I did start running, and things started to click for me, and I wanted to learn more about it. And this is again late 1990s, so we had the internet, but it was not what it is now, and there wasn't a lot
Hmm.
available online. But I'd go to the library and I'd pick out any book that I could find, and it was all kind of historical stuff. Fast forward 27 years to 2025 with the internet being what it is, social media, and just this, I don't even know what the word is to describe it, but people want what is new and flashy and exciting, right?
Yeah.
What's the new hot thing?
Right.
And what happens is people forget about history. It's just about like what is the latest and greatest. And it's not just training. I mean, again, the wheel keeps getting reinvented, but it's still a wheel, and I think that could be applied to many different things. But I hope the history doesn't get lost, and that's what I love. I mean, granted, they're a partner of mine, but that's what I love about Tracksmith. I mean, they are
Yeah.
putting out modern product, but a lot of the content they put out is celebrating the history of the sport, because there are a lot of new runners who come in and don't know, the history of these first couple running booms, or how marathoning has grown in this country, or who some of the key figures are, such as Ted Corbett. They've highlighted, they did a Speed City
Right.
thing with like Puma years ago, and like that stuff's like super cool. And I mean,
Yeah.
again, I'm older, so I've always been into that, but I hope as new runners come in, like they get into that sort of stuff too, and they can see like kind of how it's evolved and how we've arrived at this current moment.
Yeah. I love that. Speaking of which, I, I've told you this, but you had Sebastian Younger on the podcast,
Yeah.
who's on your podcast, who's really one of my favorite authors, and just someone that I look up to as a writer and just a person in general. And I didn't know he
Total
was a
badass.
runner. Oh my gosh. I mean, he was a war correspondent. He
Yeah,
wrote
just
The Perfect Storm. Like what an insane life.
cut down trees.
Yeah.
Sawed his
Right.
Achilles. I mean, you talked about this in the podcast, like sawed his Achilles while he was cutting down a tree, like all kinds of crazy stuff. But yeah,
Had a near death experience, which
Yep.
I love to hear him talk about.
And by the
but
way, he was a 220 marathoner, and
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I love that conversation you had with him, because you guys were just so deep into run culture, and
Yeah.
both growing up in Massachusetts, kind of throwing back and forth all these names, and it was cool because, he probably does a lot of podcasts and appearances where it's just talking about writing and books and whatnot, but you could tell he was so engaged and just was geeking out
Oh yeah,
about
he loved it.
run history. He loved it. It was an amazing podcast.
No, thanks, man. It was one of my favorite ones that I've done. I've enjoyed all the conversations that I've had, but that one was pretty special for that reason. And I mean, like you, I've just enjoyed Sebastian's books over the years. And the first one that I read and really resonated with me is called Tribe. And I remember
Yeah.
after I read that, I was like, who, yeah, and this is just how I am, going down rabbit holes. I'm like, who is this guy? And so I went
Yeah.
online and I was looking for other things that he'd written and interviews that he'd done, and he would just casually mention in interviews that he was a pretty fast runner, and ran like, I don't even know if he said what time that he ran, but I remember him saying he was a pretty fast runner at one point, and then the interviewer went on to the next question, and that was it. And I was like, was he a pretty fast runner, or is he just like saying he's a pretty fast runner? So I went and looked him up. I'm like, no, he was like a legit fast runner for 12-miler, 30-minute 10K, 221 marathon. This is in the late 80s. I think it was in the 1980s, before
Yeah.
super shoes and all that stuff. I'm like, that's pretty badass. And he never talked about it. No one ever asked him about it. And I was fortunate to get connected with him, and that was my pitch. I was like, hey man, love your books. I want to talk about running. And he was like, no one ever wants to talk to me about running. I would love to. And it was awesome. Like, we just had this incredible, like, 90-minute conversation about running and life, and how those things kind of interact and intersect with one another. And it was a special conversation, and I'm glad it's out in the world, and hope more people listen to it.
Yeah, that was really cool for sure. I love that about running. It's definitely it's definitely a backdoor hack into getting to meet some of the coolest people in the world. We had Ben Gibbard from Death Cab for Cutie on our podcast a couple weeks ago, and that was amazing, because I can't even tell you how much 20 years ago when I was in college, like his music was a very integral part of my life. Like it's like the soundtrack, you know? And to have it, and I didn't run at that time. So to have it come full circle,
Yeah.
to be interviewing him through running is absolutely insane. And I love that about how running, and is such a great interview because of course he just wants to talk about running. He doesn't want to talk about music because that's what he talks about in every other press junket or on tour or whatever. And so it's always so cool to have those types of guests on the podcast. In fact, it's often much better than having a runner on a podcast because a lot of times runners just love running and it's great, but it's sometimes not that interesting.
No, I mean, it's a good point. And for me personally, with my podcast, when I've had the top athletes on, I try not to talk to them too much about their most recent race result because they've talked to everybody about their most recent race result. I want to dig a little bit deeper and talk about, how does this running piece fit into the rest of the puzzle that is your life? And then we end up going, just down these roads I could have never imagined traveling that like may or may not loosely be connected to running. But those are the best conversations because with a lot of the recognizable pros, this is not the stuff they're usually talking about. And for me, like seeing them kind of think through things that they haven't had a chance to talk about or get excited about something they don't get to talk about all that often is, for me is like one of the best aspects of the job,
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about just briefly, Worlds is coming up in Tokyo. And so last weekend, I'm not sure when this podcast will come out, but this past weekend we saw some pretty crazy performances at Hayward Field.
Yeah.
Which one, I probably know the answer, but which one stood out to you the most?
Well, I wrote a little bit about this in my newsletter this past week. There were a few. If I had to drill it down to one, it was the men's 800. And there's just so much about that race. But for me, the best story of that race, and you can disagree, and that's fine, is Donovan Brazier coming back after 5 years of just injury and frustration and winning what was a fast race from the get-go and breaking his own PR and just doing it in the way that only a world champion, which he is, he won the title in 2019, could. He just sat there in like fourth place for most of the race, was patient, was calm, was controlled, and there's all kinds of chaos going around him. And just in the last like 50, 60 meters, some daylight opened up. He had enough in the tank, and just you could see it. It was just instincts. It was just like, he's like, there's my hole, gotta go. And he went through and broke the tape and won that race. And it was just a very, I don't want to call it a fairy tale ending because I think he can still, medal, if not win the world championships. And I'm excited to see what he can do with, a little bit more time. But layer that in with Cooper, the 16-year-old, like just coming out of nowhere off the last turn and running like, 12.4 for his last 100 and PRing by I think like 3 seconds or something like that to run 142 and finish second against like some of the best 800-meter runners in the world. I mean, Josh Hoey, who kind of took that race out and ended up off the podium for this one. I mean, he won World Indoors. He broke a couple American records. I mean, he's he's no slouch. And then you've got Bryce Hoppel, who is the American record holder, running 141, still finished on the podium in this one. Again, just showing his savvy and making another team. I mean, it was just an exciting race to watch.
I watched that again last night with my kids, the 800, and I couldn't believe how far back Lukenhouse was.
Yeah, he was way back.
I was like, there's no way he closes that. To get like watching it on, even rewatching it, it's kind of like when you're watching a movie and you know what's gonna happen. You're like, no, this isn't gonna happen. It's it was the same thing. Yeah,
I mean, there's a point in the NBC replay of it on YouTube where they zoom out a little bit more because he's not even in the frame, and then they zoom out and you just see him barreling down lane 3, mowing people down, and you're like, he might win this thing. Like, there's a chance that
Yeah.
he might win this thing. He had the momentum. And if it weren't for Donovan Brazier and his just like impeccably perfect timing, he probably would have won that race.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, I mean, that's all it would have taken. But again, like that's why for me, and again, taking nothing away from Lukenhaus or Bryce Hoppel or Josh Hoey for making the race, that for me is why I'm most excited about Donovan Brazier, because only a world champion can do that. Like, only
Yeah.
someone who's been able to like show that like I am the best in the world at this, or I was at one time, can win a race like that where it literally comes down to fractions of a second. Like
Yeah.
one little thing goes differently and the outcome is completely changed. So
Yeah.
yeah, amazing race.
Yeah,
Just really amazing,
pretty
exciting
awesome.
race.
We actually, so this will be out by the time yours comes out, because it might have, we had Jonah Koech on the podcast. He was in studio 2 days ago.
Oh, right on. Yeah, he's in Baltimore with the UA group. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he won the 1500 on Saturday, and so he came in and recorded a podcast with us right after it. So, which is cool to hear about. It was really cool getting to hear his perspective of like walking us through the race, especially the last 200 meters, because basically when Ethan went out, like he was just like, he saw him move and he's
Latch
just like,
on.
I'm tagging onto him. And he felt like he knew, he felt like Nagoose went out too fast. And then he also knew that he saw him blocking Hawker on the rail. So he was like, I feel like I can just get right around them. It was just cool hearing the whole, like his perspective on it. I love hearing the strategy part. It's so interesting to me.
Yeah, I can't wait to listen to that, because from the outside looking in, I don't know him at all, but just watching that race unfold, tactically, that would not be the way to do it, because it was such a fast race. I mean, he broke the championship record, but he ran the entirety of the last 400 meters in lane 2, which means he was running a lot of extra distance relative to everyone else. And again, at that level, like those fractions of an inch, fractions of a second, they make a big difference.
Sure.
The one thing is he was able to stay out of trouble, because when you're running on the outside like that, you're not boxed in on the inside and hoping that some daylight opens up. But he just had to put so much extra energy into running the entirety of that last lap in 52.9 seconds or whatever it is that he did it in lane 2, that you're like, against these guys, one of which is the reigning Olympic champion, there's no way he comes out on top. But he did. And I mean, I wrote about this in my newsletter this week. That is just insane talent. Like, it's poor tactics, but insane talent made up for poor tactics in this situation. And here's a guy who's run, I don't think he's run, that was maybe his 5th pro 1500 that he's ever run. So he's still gaining experience. You're like, well, if he has that kind of crazy talent and he learns how to run a little bit better tactically, I mean, watch out. I mean, he could be winning world medals and breaking American and maybe world records. I mean, he looks so good. So I'm excited to watch that or listen to that interview, but definitely go watch that 1500. It was an exciting race for sure.
Yeah, it was very exciting. Yeah, I think I think there's so many, there's a whole, and then, I mean, there's plenty of stories on the women's side too, so I don't want to, there's Emily Infield and also Shelby Houlihan's back after her suspension. It's
just going over that meet would be a whole podcast in itself. I mean, just to touch on Emily Infield real quick. So that was the first night of competition. It was Thursday, won the women's 10,000 meters with just a crazy kick over the last lap or so. And I was excited because she's another one who's, like Donovan, just traveled kind of a rough road. I don't think she missed quite as much time as he did, but she's been injured a lot. Emily's been injured a lot. And she's another one who, when she's healthy and she's firing on all cylinders, she's a world medalist. I can't remember what year she won that, but she's won a world medal. And she's 35 years old. Donovan's still fairly young. He's 28. Emily's 35 years old. there aren't a lot of 35-year-old women or men winning the 10,000 these days in the U.S. just because we're so young and talented and
Right.
deep. So for her to be able to win against that field in the way that she did was just really exciting to see. I mean, she's had a lot of changes over the last couple of years, new sponsor, new old coach, because she's back working with Milt, her college coach. After being with the Bowerman Track Club for a few years and bouncing around. But I was just excited to see her healthy and racing well and in it. And I think that was her first national title, if I'm not mistaken. So to be able to
Yeah.
do that at 35, and even if it's not, to be able to get another one at 35
Sure.
in the 10,000 when most people her age are moving to the roads or moving up to the marathon is a pretty cool
Right.
thing to see.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm excited. I think Tokyo will be pretty great for sure.
Yeah. Then you got Nikki Hiltz dominating the 1500. Her their ninth, I think it was ninth straight appearance in
It's like
the
8th or 9th.
1500
Yeah.
final and fourth straight title or something like that.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's
Just
super impressive for sure.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah, there's so many. Yeah, again, and we didn't even cover the men's 100 meter either and all that drama.
No, the drama was in the 200.
I mean, 200, yeah, not 100.
Yeah, the drama was in the 200. Kenny won
Yeah.
the 100, and then he and Noah
Right.
had a little tiff in the 2. But
Yeah, that was, which is kind of weird because it's like you're kind of teammates too going into Tokyo. Like in a way, it's like you're representing the U.S., but also
they are. But it's, I mean,
I know.
sprinting's its own world, man. Especially amongst the men in particular. You just have a lot of alpha males who want to show their dominance, and in that event more so than any other. And there's certainly signs of that in the 200 meter final at USA's.
All right. Well, let's see. Let's wrap it up by giving me what your favorite books are right now, or anything that you feel like you wanna, you think would be. Let's pretend this is your newsletter. So what's something you could add in here that would be useful to the listeners? Maybe that you're enjoying reading or listening to, anything like that.
So one thing I was just listening to, one of my athletes had mentioned to me the other day that he went to the Dead and Company in San Francisco. I think they were playing as part of
That's right.
A bigger festival, and they have a pretty consistent cast of characters, people who rotate in from time to time. But he had mentioned how good John Mayer was on the guitar playing with them.
Yeah.
And if you've never seen, I mean, I don't care what you think about John Mayer or his music. If you've never seen him play guitar, like, withhold your judgment, because I've seen him play live 2, if not 3 times, and it's one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. And he just, I mean, he could be in a stadium with 30,000 people, and you would think he's just in his apartment jamming out on his own. I've never seen someone so fully immersed in what they're doing than when John Mayer is playing guitar. So anyway, it sent me down a rabbit hole.
Yeah. I'm with you, by the way. John Mayer, if you haven't seen him live, dude, I saw him actually pretty much the same time I was in a Death Cab for Cutie. I was just into all kinds of music. But so in college, I saw him at a place in Cleveland, it's called the Odeon. Odeon? Yeah. It's kind of just like a 1,000-person venue, but it was amazing. And I saw him then I saw him again. I think I saw him 2 or 3 times that same year. Dude, he's so good. And that was on Room for Squares album, and then he kind of had his growing up moments and things like that, but now he's just known as a legendary guitarist. I mean, he's just incredible. Yeah,
and so where I'm getting at with this is it sent me down a YouTube rabbit hole of watching, because I've never seen him play with Dead and Company, so I'm like, oh, this will be cool. Let me go watch him play with some Grateful Dead stuff. And I'm pretty sure I linked to this in my newsletter a couple years ago, because I was like, oh, I've seen this, but now I'm seeing it through a new set of eyes. But they played a live show somewhere, and they did All Along the Watchtower, and he's got, I mean, it's like a 9-minute version of the song, and he's got a couple solos in there, and you can see what I'm talking about. And I'll send you the link if you want to put it in the show notes of this episode. But I
Okay,
watched
yeah.
that the other night, and I was just like zoomed in on it, and I was like, this is freaking incredible. So I would
That's
definitely go
cool.
check that
I
out.
like it.
From a music standpoint, from a book standpoint, one of the last books I read that I really enjoyed, and I have a feeling based on our shared interest that you might enjoy it as well. It's an older book, and there is a movie. I don't want to say it's based on the movie because the book's essentially a transcript, but it's called Although of Course You End Up Becoming Yourself, and it's
Okay.
written by a guy named David Lipsky. And written is a strong word. It's really just a transcription of conversations that he had while he was tagging along with David Foster Wallace as he was wrapping up his tour for Infinite Jest in
Uh-huh.
1996 or so. I think the book was published in 2010. So you're kind
Yeah.
of just reading a transcript of what would have been a pretty awesome podcast if that was a thing back then. But you're just reading this transcript of these two guys who didn't know each other, and Lipsky's covering him for, I wanted to say Rolling Stone or one of those other big publications, because
Yeah.
Wallace is the hottest thing in fiction at the time. And he's doing this tour, and he's just a very complex character, and you could tell like he doesn't really trust David at first because he doesn't know them, but they're together for a couple weeks and they're spending a lot of time together, like in cars and hotel rooms and planes. And he must have just recorded all of it and or was taking notes. And this book is just a transcription of their conversations. And for me, what's fascinating about it is it just paints what I think is probably the best picture you're ever going to get of David Foster Wallace, who,
Gotcha.
again, just a very complex character, a bit of an
Mm-hmm.
enigma in a lot of ways, but you're just
Yeah.
reading the transcript of these two guys talking to one another about all manner of different things, and I couldn't put it down. Like, I love that shit.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling you might appreciate that as well.
Yeah, I
Might not be
definitely check
everyone's
that
cup of
out.
tea, but it's called Although of Course You End Up Becoming Yourself. And it's there's a movie called The End of the Tour, which I have not watched, which is it's it's not a documentary, but it's based on this exactly. And
Okay,
I need to
gotcha.
see that. So
Cool. I love it. And any other music? Okay, here's a question. You're a
yeah,
Third Eye Blind fan, right?
I like Third Eye Blind. Yeah.
Okay. They're Third Eye Blind. I feel like I saw you reference them at some point. The self-titled first album, Third Eye Blind. I think that the closing 3 tracks on that album are the best closing 3 tracks in history of any album that I can recall, because it's The Background, Motorcycle Drive-By, and God of Wine. And everyone talks about like the best opening track or closing track or best 3 opening tracks. You always see these on threads. Oh, what's the best opening? I think that's the best 3 closing songs of an album.
I don't have it in front of me, and I can't recall all of them off the top of my head, but I'm just going to take your word for it. And as soon as we get off this, I'm going
All
to
right.
go and like just listen to
Go
it, because
back and
that's
listen
just
to
how
all
my
3
brain
and see.
operates.
Yeah, yeah. But what's the okay? Maybe not last question. I'll probably think of another one. What's your favorite show that you've seen in like a concert, like a live show?
Oh, easy. It was almost exactly a year ago, coming up on a year ago. A guy named John Moreland. I saw him play at the Chapel in San Francisco, and I had
Okay.
just discovered his music last year, even though he's been around for a long time. And he had a new album come out called Visitor, and he was touring around the country, and he played in San
Okay.
Francisco, which is not a huge venue, but the Chapel's a pretty cool place to see a show.
Yeah.
And John he's had an interesting career. I mean, I think is the best living songwriter today, and I know people will argue with me on that.
Oh, I know who you're
He
talking
had
about.
a
Okay.
big
Yeah. Yeah.
record label, and he was doing, the tour. He was represented by the same person as Jason Isbell. And long
Mm-hmm.
story short, he burned himself out a few years ago and took a couple years off just to kind of find himself, got rid of his cell phone for a while, wrote this album, and then decided, you know what, I'm going to do things on my own terms from here on out. And so kind of like, as I think his exact words were, unceremoniously fired my agent. And it's just like he and his wife, and he produced his last album in his living room. And put it out when it was ready, not when the record company wanted to put it out. And then
Yeah.
he used to tour with like 2 or 3 vehicles and had a band, and now he just drives around in his truck with his wife, and he just plays with an acoustic guitar, and he does
Love
it
that.
all himself. And he was in the middle of this last year, so he played in San Francisco, and I was excited to see him either way. This guy named Justin Bloss opened up for him, whose music I really love, and I didn't know anything about him before I saw that show. But what was cool about it is, Justin wrapped up, went backstage. Like John's wife came out and set up his chair and put his guitar there in like a Waterloo, and the light was shining there, and the place was quiet. Not really quiet. People are just kind of like talking,
Right.
waiting for the show to start. And he's a big dude. He's like 6 foot something, and just has this like imposing presence. But he just plays acoustic guitar, and he has this very, um, gravelly type of voice.
Yeah.
And he comes out from backstage, and as soon as he steps on the stage, this place just goes quiet. And he sits down in the chair, picks up his guitar, and just goes right into playing Tulsa County Stars, one of his most popular songs. Doesn't say,
Yeah.
"Hey, I'm John Moreland, thanks for coming out." He just goes and plays the music. And I don't know that he, he would say thank you after songs when people would clap, but I don't know that he, went off. And I just love that he was like, "I'm here to play music." And I knew this. I'd never been to one of his shows before, but I had read about him. I'd read about how, like, if people are talking through his shows, like, it kind of makes him mad, and it makes people in the audience mad. And so I'm there, like, watching the show, and someone would, like, kind of start talking, and, like, almost immediately someone would turn around and they'd be like, "Shut the fuck up," like, type of thing. And it was just like, this place was quiet, and everyone was just there to listen to him. And it was unlike any other show that I have been to, and it's one of the best shows that
That's awesome.
maybe it's recency bias. I've been to a bunch of shows since then, but I mean, it was probably one of the best show I've ever been to. Just a cool experience, very unique, and he just has this, this presence about him, which is unlike anything I've ever seen from another musician. So
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, I feel like Ryan Adams could learn a few lessons from him. Every time I hear about a Ryan Adams show, it's always like falling apart at the seams because he's like talking too much and then going off on someone in the crowd or whatever.
No, John just got up there and he just basically played for 2 hours straight, and it was amazing. Yeah.
Oh, man, that's great. And in a theater, there's something about a theater when you see a show there. I think I saw a show recently in a theater. It's just different. It feels so much. It feels, I don't know. There's just something about it, like an old theater where when they're on stage, like you're talking about that quiet, that sense of quiet, and then the acoustics are always great. I love that.
Yeah, it was a really intimate environment, and it was just about the music. It wasn't about the side shows or the lights, or it was none of that. It was just him and a guitar, and he's again, I think he's an incredible songwriter, and he's just spilling his guts on the stage.
See, I love that. Like what you're talking about, where he just stripped it down, living room, pickup truck.
Mm-hmm.
I always loved when Bon Iver did his first album. He basically just got a cabin in the woods because he was like 35 or something when he recorded, or in his early 30s, and was a lifelong musician, failed musician. Went into that cabin in the woods for a month or whatever, recorded For Emma forever ago, and just released it as is. And of course, that set his career off to where he's worked with everyone at this point. I'm not gonna lie, there have been times I have a dream of just getting a camper, throwing it on my family farm, and just taking a month and throwing the cell phone out and just seeing what happens. Maybe it'll happen. That's like seriously my dream.
I share a similar dream. I don't know if and when it'll ever happen, but that would be amazing.
Yeah. One can dream about being isolated in the middle of the woods. But yeah, that's awesome. Well, I don't know if there's anything else left, but here's what's your running goal? What are your running goals looking like right now? What do you got going on?
Oh man. I am not currently training for any big races or anything in particular. I will run some local cross country this fall with the West Valley Track Club, which I've been a member of for the last like 3+ years, local like masters team here. And
Cool.
I've just been enjoying the shorter stuff and getting together with my teammates. Again, what we were talking about earlier on in this conversation, just like that real world connection. I mean, for me to be able to, show up a couple times a month and share a start line with these guys who are at a very similar place in their life. And I love cross country because of the team aspect of it. To be a part of something that's bigger than myself, for whatever, I mean, I've run cross country since high school, but for whatever reason, it carries a little more meaning to it right now. And that's not from the standpoint of like, taking it seriously, like, which I do, but I just really value being like in community with other people. So I'm looking forward to the fall cross country season. That's a little ways away at this point, but I just try to get out. I get out like 6 days a week, most weeks. And I just run a lot of miles with my wife and my dog and friends in the area and solo as well. And I just enjoy that. It's a foundational part of just my day and my week. And, the morning cup of coffee always comes first, but running happens soon after that. And I can't think of a better way to start the day. So I'm just hoping to maintain that. So if I have a goal, that's it. It's just to kind of keep that going for as long as I can.
I love that. By the way, if you're listening to the podcast and you haven't seen Mario run, he's fast as hell. At least to me you are, or maybe to the people, maybe to yourself you're not, but we did the
Is your ass still sore from the slap I gave you at the New Balance indoor relay back in April?
I'm going to press charges within the next year. He lapped me on the New Balance track relay, and I was like, dude, I don't understand how you're that fast. I don't understand how anyone is that fast. Like the people that were running that race, I know there's some really good runners there, but
I was not the fastest one there by any stretch of the imagination. No.
But you're still, what was your, did you run like a 5? No, I don't know. I don't want to insult you by saying it one way or the other. What was your mile time for your lap?
The relay? They were like 5:06 or 5:08 something.
Okay, that's what I was like 5 minutes. Okay. Yeah, to me that's like, I don't know, on that day I was feeling I was feeling not good that day. I can't remember why. Oh, I ran the 5K earlier that day. That's probably didn't help.
And it's just an exhausting weekend in general. There's so much going on in Boston.
Yeah.
And
that was a super fun event, though. That
it's great. I loved it.
I was like, they have to run that back because that was actually going into it. I was a little bit skeptical of it. The idea seemed cool, but I was like, who's going to come to this? And it's a track relay with a bunch of teams running a marathon all together.
It was a ton of fun. Yeah. I mean, they did a great job.
But it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was great.
I was a little worried too because it was a marathon distance relay. So you're like, well, even if you have fast teams here, like this is going to be between like 2 and 4.5 hours.
Exactly. That's what I was saying. Yeah.
And I'm like, I thought going into it, I was like, and it's on an indoor track. I'm like, people are just going to lose interest kind of in between, but no one lost interest. Like the energy and the buzz and the excitement was just like sky high the entire time. So yeah, New Balance, if you're listening to this, I hope you're listening to this because you're partners with both of us here. Bring it back in April 2026. And
you have to run that back.
Another team.
And if you're going to be up there for Boston and you're not running the relay or you're just hanging out, or maybe you're running the marathon, and they run it back, you have to come out because it's such a good party. They had the whole infield, open bar, free food, like really good food and drinks. It was such a good time.
Yeah, the donut bar was pretty sweet.
It
was great.
But anyways, all right. Well, thanks again for coming on. It was a great conversation. I think people will enjoy it a lot. So yeah, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, thanks for having me. A lot of fun to talk running and life and the various tangents that we went off on during the last hour and a half. I appreciate it.
Give a good stretch, got my laces tied. My trusty podcast by my side. If you wanna talk fun, it's the place to be. Yeah, it's the drop, D-R-O-B.